A huge tariff just went into effect on Swiss watches. And it's a good news. For subscribers of my channel, I want to say, what a time to be a collector of American vintage watches. So in this video, we're gonna talk about why is this news about tariff on Swiss watch industry is actually good news for us. We also gonna talk about why, so like this, like 39% number tariff seems like very like a large number, but why actually the impact on people who collect modern watches will be actually much smaller than that number, and what it means for them. So while it's still a good news for us, but it's not an amazing news, it's just a good news. Also, I'm gonna make some examples. I brought some watches over here, and I'm gonna make some examples of tariffs. Even for us who collect vintage watches and American watches, there might be some impact. Especially, I'm going to talk about collecting vintage Japanese watches. There are things that you need to know about the tariffs and this big tariff on Swiss watches. But yeah, we're going to have a lot of fun here. So let's actually recap what exactly happened today. So today, the 39% tariff was went into effect on all watches that come from Switzerland to United States. And let me explain why I think it's actually excellent news for us, for people who collect watches that I like, and for people who watch this channel. So basically, the idea is like if you hear this number, like 39% tariff, it's you think that there will be a huge jump in costs for people who collect modern watches. So we are hoping that maybe those people who collect modern watches will come into our camp, maybe because the difference between something that increased a lot, right, and something that stayed at the same time, which would be like actually the watches that my subscribers collect. So maybe those people who collect modern watches will come to our camp, and they will actually start appreciating vintage watches, and especially American vintage watches or other vintage watches, right? Just because there is this jump in the price, this shock, right? So I always, so like, again, like this is not about the value of our vintage collection increasing because the people are coming to us and more people collect vintage, because I guess even if those watches that we already have in our collections will increase in value, like all of us, we are buying new watches, right? We are buying new vintage watches. So the buying new vintage watches might become more expensive for us, but like my big point is that our community is so small, especially those people who collect American vintage watches. It's like there is almost nobody there. Nobody's interested in that. So maybe if there is this huge shock in price on modern watches, that those people will look into what we collect, because what we collect is amazing. It's worth paying attention. It's worth collecting instead of spending all of your money on this like modern crap. And so I want to make an example. So there are a lot of famous American collectors. Okay, let's talk specifics. Ben Clymer, right? The Ben Clymer is one of the most famous collector of watches. And Ben Clymer, he was born in the United States. He likes to talk about him that he was raised in a middle class family. He's American to the core. And if you look at all of his articles, if you look in what he collects, if you look with all the videos, he just wrote an article on Hodinke, by the way. So the Ben lives in the world where like the American watches never existed. You know, it's like it's not a thing. You know, like the American watch for Ben Clymer, the pinnacle of American watchmaking, it's Patek Philippe Nautilus 5711 scientific. Like this is crazy. This is like, how is this possible? And by the way, the same is happening with Japanese collectors that they are showing on Hodinke. So they are showing somebody like from Japan, collector. He has like great collection. He was collecting the whole life. And it's like the guy never heard about Japanese watches. Like, look, how can it be? Like we live in United States. Like old American watches are like everywhere around us. Like that's like the easiest thing you can get is American watches, and American watches were amazing. Like up until 1950s. American watches not were just the same quality as Swiss watches, they were probably better quality. But if you're in United States, American wristwatches were much more desirable than Swiss watches. So anyway, I'm talking, so this video is about tariffs. So what I hope tariffs will do for American collectors is that more of them will look into vintage watches, and especially American vintage watches, right? So that's the idea. The big shock will bring people to us. Okay, now let me kind of a little bit lower down the expectations, because while it seems like a shock, there's like 39% tariff is a big shock, right? The reality will be that the impact on people who collect modern watches will be much lower. So let's look at in numbers. So while the tariff is 39%, so American government will receive 39% higher like amount of dollars than they received before. But if you look at the price of the watch that consumer is actually buying in the United States, then even if watch brands want to pass all of the tariff to consumers, so they will just increase the price of the watch by the same number that they pay a tariff, right? Then that increase will not be 39%, because in the watch that they are selling to you, there are all kinds of other costs. It's not just importing the watch from Switzerland. So the estimates are that if they pass the whole tariff to you and you buy that modern watch, then you will have to pay maybe like 10, maybe 14% higher. So now if we are talking 10-14% higher, that's already not such a big shock as 39%, right? So now the people coming to us to collect vintage watches, there will be less people, right? Now what makes it even worse and better for collectors of modern watches is that if you look at all the amount, all the watches that people collect, then most of these watches are actually those hype watches. So we are talking Rolex, we are talking AP Royal Oaks, we are talking Nautiluses, Pateks, all these very popular watches. And the thing about those popular watches is that the market price of those popular watches today is much higher than the price that they sell you that watch at the store, right? That's why nobody can buy those watches. That's why there are never-ending wait lists, and you come to the store and there is nothing for sale, right? So if those brands increase the price of the watch, let's say by these like 10-14%, then basically there will be absolutely no impact for the collector, because collector is already buying from the market, right? So like if somebody actually managed to buy from the store, so it either cost him a lot of like useless purchases in the store, so he actually spent the amount of money comparable to the market price already, or he just buys from the store and flips it, right? So actually I have a comment. Awesome. I'm doing well. Solid gold. Yeah, so we're gonna talk about this solid gold Mark II on my wrist, because this is a very, very good example to discuss in numbers and how actually tariffs will impact us as vintage collectors. But we coming to this. So we're going to be talking also about Japanese watches. Let's stay with me. So while the jump in price on modern collectors will not be 39%, will be maybe like 10-14%, but the big chunk of these watches is actually those hype watches that they already have a market price higher than the price at the store. So even if the price at the store jumps 10-14%, right? Then there will be absolutely no impact on collectors of modern watches, because they were already paying market price. Like the best thing for them, what could be that MSRP might be the same, might reach the market price. Instead of them buying on a secondary market or like a gray market, they would be able to just go to Rolex store and buy the Submariner for the same price, right? So the real impact on that tariff on modern collectors is not as shocking as that like 39% number might make you think, but still it's a great news for us. So hopefully our community will be increasing. Now there is another kind of a big thing. Let me go into numbers. So I have 3 watches to kind of get you some idea about the numbers. So and you will think about like what actually impact will be. So like my this is solid gold Akitron Mark II C, made in 1969, fully solid gold watch. One of these was actually sold 2 months ago on eBay, and it was sold for $1,300. Just slightly more than $1,000. Now, if you compare that to a solid gold watches, modern solid gold watches, like just pick any brand, just pick whatever brand you like, and see how much it will cost you to buy a solid modern solid gold watch from that brand, right? It's going to be maybe like 20,000, maybe 30,000, maybe like let's say the cheapest solid gold watch, right? So let's say 30,000, right? So modern collectors, they already are willing to pay $30,000 for a modern watch instead of looking for a vintage that sells for like $1,300. Like the difference is huge. Now think about this. Will that modern collector change something like what he collects, what he likes, if that $20,000 or $30,000 will increase by like 10-14%, right? Well, if like, I don't know, like $30,000 becomes like $34,000, he would be like, oh my God, the price of the watch increased to $34,000. Maybe I will look at that old solid gold Mark II C. No, like I hope somebody will, but again, like they already got used to paying such a high prices comparing to prices of the watches that we collect. I'm afraid that again, the news is positive, but I'm afraid it might be not such a big news. Another example, Grail-worthy military-issued Hamilton Fab sold for 2.5 thousand. And we compare it to like for 2.5 thousand, you can't even buy not Rolex, absolutely no Rolex. You can't even buy Oris. So will that person who got used buying Orises because his Oris increased in price by 10%, will he say like, oh no, I'm not buying those like stupid Orises, I'm gonna go look at these like Grail worthy Hamilton Fabis? No, Maybe. Okay, again, I shouldn't say no. We hope that they will. We hope that at least somebody will come to appreciate vintage watches, and especially vintage American watches. But I just want to lower your expectations that the impact might be not as large. Or let's take this one. So everybody loves and buys in large numbers these like Moon's watches, right? This watch sells for $200, less than most Moon's watch. That's pretty much Grand Seiko quality. So I made my recent video is about Seiko Lord Matic. It's pretty much Grand Seiko quality, sells for $200. Modern collector says no. I'm gonna buy 260. Like where is, and now he's like Moon will be like not 260 but like 260 plus like 14%. Like will something like click in their head and they would be like, oh my god, this Lord Magic is really cool. I hope it will, but again the change is not unfortunately is not as large as you would think that 39% tariff would be. So now let's talk a little bit about vintage collectors. So a lot of people who watch my channel, they collect vintage American watches. So we're gonna do case by case, right? They collect vintage American watches, and the great news for you is that you are golden. There will be absolutely no impact on you. So while the prices of everybody else are increasing, the prices for you will stay the same, and that's amazing. And we hope more people will collect vintage American watches because they are absolutely mind-blowing. They are so cool. Anyway, now let's take a look at some other vintage watches, right? So now, what's gonna happen if you buy, let's say, a Japanese vintage watch, right? So I made a lot of videos on my channel about Japanese vintage watches. I love Japanese vintage watches. I own Japanese vintage watches, right? Will you have to pay a tariff or not? So the good news about Japanese tariffs is that, first of all, Japanese tariff is much smaller than the Swiss tariff. So the tariff on Swiss watches is 39%. The tariff on Japanese watches is only 15%. But theoretically, if you are buying if you're buying an old item, you should not pay tariff because like the tariff and the tax was already paid by whoever bought it new. But the reality is that you probably gonna buy that watch from some platform. So I know that if I'm buying old watches on eBay, then eBay charges me all these like fees and tariffs, right? So it's possible. So it depends who you buy those watches from, but it's possible that the platform will still, because of stupidity, charge you the tariff. But the good news that you will pay only 15% tariff, and wait, there is more. So as far as I know, the tax rule on this like $800, the minimums. So you know, like when you cross the border in airplane and whatever you bring with you, if it costs then less than $800, then you don't need to pay duty when you cross the border, like when you like go from the airplane, right? So the same thing works for goods that you're importing from foreign countries. So right now it's except China and Hong Kong, I believe, those that the minimums were eliminated. But for all other countries like Japan, like if you buy a vintage watch for less than $800, that the minimum should apply to you. So you should pay no tax, no tariff. Again, that might change, and again, it depends like how stupid is whatever the platform that you're buying watches from. But yeah, so again, like if As a vintage collector, theoretically, you should be fine. Worst case, you're gonna pay 15%, but yeah, the Swiss watches will be hurt much more. And now, if you're buying a Swiss watch from a Swiss vintage watch, again, maybe because of all these rules that I told you, you're not gonna pay anything, but there is possibility that you will pay a tariff, and tariff has 39%. You can also, there is there is nothing wrong to buy a Swiss watch, like if you're in US, to buy from US, right? Because there are a lot of vintage Swiss watches and Japanese watches already in US. So instead of like importing them from somewhere, then you can buy it just locally, and you don't need to pay any stupid tax. But basically, the whole idea is that yeah, so we are golden. You collect American vintage watches, you are golden. You collect vintage watches, you are probably doing great. But if you are collecting modern watches like everybody else, if you want to be like everybody else, then it's gonna hit you. But it's probably not gonna hit you like 39%. Even it's like if you again, like if you collect these like popular watches like Royal Oak, all this crap, then you're probably not gonna notice even anything. So yeah, so again, what a time to be a collector of American vintage wristwatches. Congratulations, guys. So what I actually want to, so after watching this video, so I'm talking a lot about the value of vintage watches much more in details in my own state of the collection video. So in my state of the collection video, I'm going through all watches one by one, and I'm specifically talking about value, comparing them to the modern watches or the modern similar watches in my collection. So yeah, click over here and watch my state of the collection that I just released with all the watches, not just these three, but all the watches in my collection. Thank you.